and welcome back to a Raptors podcast, season 2 of a Raptors podcast. I'm your host, as always, Lucky Roberts, and I am joined with Finn Noel, my good friend. Finn, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on for the first episode.
Hey, no problem. I'd be happy to have you on as much as you'd like throughout the season, and we're starting off with the Raptors starting out 1-2 in the first week. It's been some highs, some lows, as expected with this team. We started off with a game against the Cleveland Cavaliers, and the Raptors missing some pieces. IQ goes down early in this game, and just a lot didn't go right for them. Scotty Barnes, unfortunate game for him. 3 for 14 from the field, only 9 points. He bounced back later in the week, but it was rough sledding from the beginning. What do you think about his performance?
Well, like you said, if you're going to go 3 for 14 from the field, it's hard to say that a player did have a good game. You look at his box scores plus minus on the game; it was minus 33. That is the lowest on the team
By far.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I think the second lowest here, if we're looking at the box score, is going to be Jamal Shed, and he only played 19 minutes off the bench with a minus 21. So there is a big difference there in how Scotty played compared to everybody else. It scares you a little bit as a fan, but also it's the first game of the season, and I'm sure the players are getting used to a new offense. Maybe Darko's made some changes, and Scotty's just getting used to the pace of the game again. So hopefully it's nothing to worry about.
Well, and it's funny, Jamal Shed being the second lowest box score plus minus, and it's funny because he's one of the players that stand out there. Like, he's one of the players where you think he's gotten stuff going. He had 10 points in this one, 4 assists, but it really wasn't enough for the Raptors. They lose by 30, 136 to 106. But Jamal Shed, I've actually liked a lot what I've seen from him so far, even though it didn't really show that in the box plus minus. I think his defense at the point of attack is really, really great. He really sets a tone just with the effort level that you see out there. You notice the team react to him being out on the court, and he makes some pretty good passes. I'd like for him to figure out some of his shooting for sure, and obviously learn the offense a bit more, and figure out his game, I think, in the NBA. But as just a full effort player at the point of attack defensively as well, he's looking very, very good, at least for a rookie. You also saw Mobo, whatever you want to call him, get onto the court here, and he had 7 points. Sort of similar player, good defensively. What do you like about this rookie class for the Raptors?
Well, I am pretty high in Jamal Shed, same as you. I know you did say he did have that minus 21 box plus minus in that game against the Cavaliers, but he comes out and he's looking strong in these first 3 games. I am actually a Washington Wizards fan, and watching their games against the Wizards in the preseason, our rookie Carlton Carrington was going up against Jamal Shed one-on-one. Carlton Carrington was the 14th pick. Jamal Shed was, if I'm not mistaken, a second rounder.
Yeah.
He would have been in 50s or something like that, correct?
He was 46. Yeah.
He was 46, so very close to 50. If you're looking just point blank at a 14th versus 46th pick, you'd expect the 14th pick to outplay that 46th pick, but Jamal Shed was absolutely demolishing Carlton Carrington in that game, and Jamal Shed just comes out of the court and he acts like a bulldog. He's strong, he's gritty, he played at University of Houston, which is known for their defense and just toughness in general, and that's something that he can definitely bring to the Raptors team, that grittiness, it's sort of that undefined aspect of the game that he brings. So I'm really happy with him.
The intangibles.
Yes, the intangibles. That's a great word to put it here. And I am definitely looking forward to watching their other rookie there, Jacoby Walter. He's unfortunately injured right now. I'm not sure of the timeline and when he's going to come back, but he's looking like he's going to be a very good 3-and-D wing as well. Reminds me a little bit of Aaron Nesmith from what I've seen.
Well, and that's sort of been the story for the Raptors so far. We are 1-2. We did get a win, and we'll get to that later. But we've just had a lot of injuries to start. Obviously, Emmanuel quickly goes down on this one. You saw just land straight on his tailbone. That's really rough. You obviously, like you said, Jacoby Walter is out, our hot shot 18th overall pick rookie. We're out from Barrett as well. Scotty, always a little bit injured and stuff like that. And you look around this team, we also are missing. What are we missing?
I know Barrett and Cliff Barrett
the
for sure.
Center.
Ken Birch?
No. Ken Birch is been off.
Oh, he's gone. He's gone.
Yeah, the Canadian guy played for the Canadian national team.
That is Ken Birch.
No.
Kelly Olynyk?
Kenny Olynyk. We were
So
Kelly
Kelly
Olynyk also out to. Usually I'd cut that out. I'm not cutting it out tonight.
There
tonight
we go.
It's staying in. It's 2 a.m. right now. 3 a.m.
3 a.m. is
if
what
you
we're
add
running.
2 minutes. 3 a.m. in about 2 minutes, and we are just about out of it. But we're here to recap the games for you, and let's talk more specifically about this Cleveland Cavaliers game versus the Raptors. It started out, these teams were keeping pace, but I think as soon as we started getting on the bench, especially with a bunch of guys injured, you could see this Raptors team put out a lot of guys who I wouldn't call exactly NBA players. You saw a lot of Bruno Fernando. You saw Battle get a lot of moments out there. He had 16 minutes. Davion Mitchell as well coming off the bench. I think he's obviously an NBA player, so he's fine. But Temple getting minutes in this game. Shamshay as well, who was our 58th pick, and he's very, very much a player whose development is going to be stuck in the G League. He's 2 years away from being 2 years away, right? And so
Absolutely.
Him getting minutes on the court really shows just about how low on the barrel we were scraping for players and minutes here. And the Cavaliers demolished us. And what would you say the Cavaliers did the best to beat the Raptors in this game?
Well, I think the biggest change that came with the Cavaliers offseason is definitely the change in the head coach. They went from J.B. Bickerstaff, a guy who I think was very set in his ways and sort of unwilling to change in a lot of ways. You change from that to Kenny Atkinson, who's very offense-oriented and is definitely excited to use the potential of Evan Mobley, and that's probably my biggest point here. Mm-hmm. Evan Mobley tied the Cavs for the highest box plus minus. I know I like using that stat today, but he had plus 31 in the game, 25 points, 9 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, 3 blocks.
And he's on my fantasy team.
That makes Lucky very, very happy, and I'm sure it makes the Cavs happy too, because he has definitely unlocked his offensive potential here, and I think that's probably Kenny Atkinson's doing. He's sort of telling Mobley, like, hey, you can take more than 6 shots a game, and we're going to be happy with you doing that. Obviously, Donovan Mitchell is still the main offensive threat for this team, but Mobley is tall, long, he's got great shooting ability, great passing ability.
They both equal each other in attempts in this game, right? And I think that's sort of what Atkinson's realizing is, obviously Mitchell's the right now, but what's the future of this team, right? And how are we going to get to that future? What version of the Cavaliers wins a championship, right? You're not going to win a championship with Donovan Mitchell as your best player, right? You need a Mobley to become that best player for you. Mm-hmm. And so for Mobley to become that, you got to give him more opportunities, and you saw that today, and you've seen him really succeed early on in this season in that role. Jared Allen as well, they really overwhelmed the Raptors' front court because basically we're playing Agbaji, who actually played pretty decently as a power forward who's, he's 6'6", he plays like a power forward. He's not the size of a power forward.
No, when he was in Utah, he played the shooting guard position. That is not something that you'd expect. The Raptors are just in general very, very small. The depth that they do have that's big is a Mobo, is a Chomche, is a Boucher, all these guys who are, not very strong, they're pretty skinny, lanky, and they also just don't have much experience if you ignore Chris Boucher. So.
And Fernando as well, who's, like you've said, just basically he's just out there. He's just a guy who's going to be a guy. He had 6 points, minus 10, 7 rebounds. He's going to get the basic stuffs that you need from a center. He's not giving you anything else. I mean, nothing. He's not passing the salt. He's not passing the pepper. He's got his own stuff, and he's going to do that. And Fernando, sure. You know what?
He's on the team.
He's fine. He's better than a Shamshay, I think, at this point. Not really somewhere you want to look for a lot of minutes. And we just got overwhelmed by their offensive boards, and they could outscore us as well. And I think our defense did pick up in these next couple of games, and it was a place we were really looking to improve, especially with the offense not really coming along as we'd like it to. And the defense really needed to improve. And bringing in, obviously, Jamal Shed, Davion Mitchell, bringing in a Mogbo, you want to develop guys in that role, in that type, because we like to think that we have our scorers already, right? We have RJ, we have Quickly, we have Scotty, we have our scorers. Let's bring some defensive players in. Let's infuse them into this roster. And you could see it throughout the week getting better. And let's move on to our second game, the Raptors beating the Philadelphia 76ers. Mm-hmm. But I will say this is an Embiid-less 76ers. And I will
George-less 76ers
a Paul George-less 76ers as well. And the Raptors did sneak a win here, a much better performance from Scotty. 27 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists. It's 2 steals and a block. Did everything you wanted him to do. Filled up the stat sheet. Got to the free throw line a lot, too. 13 free throws for him. He was great in this one. Really ran the offense without Emmanuel Quickly there for the entire game. And he was really the focal point of everything we do offensively. And you could see this trickle over to the Timberwolves game where we're asking him to do a lot, and it's not in the way that you're asking a Mobley to do a lot more. You're asking Scotty to do everything for this team, and I just don't think he's ready for that. Even though it is, fourth year, it's time to start growing into the player you're gonna be. It's just not in the cards for him at this moment. But it was good enough against the Embiid-less, against the George-less 76ers, and the Raptors' defense looked a bit better. But honestly, without those two guys, the Sixers look a lot like the Raptors.
The Sixers really do look a lot like the Raptors. I thought they made a lot of great moves in the offseason to add some depth and to make themselves a better team. But I think, the theme of today, at least if we're talking about the Cavaliers game and relating that to this one, is overwhelming the other team in the front court. And that's sort of what the Raptors did to the Sixers here, I think. If you look at who they were playing, they have Andre Drummond, who's a great player. But if you look at their backups, they're running Gershon Yabusele, who is just out of the league. Just the only reason he really has a contract right now is because of his play in the Olympics, to be frank. He is their backup center right now. Other than that, it's Adam Bona, who I believe came from the G League. Scored 0 points in the game, really didn't have much of an impact. And you know what? Now that I'm seeing this, he only played 1 minute, so he didn't even play. It was Gershon Yabusele who was their backup center. So that really allowed the Raptors to get it on the boards, I'm assuming. Looking at the stats here, there's a lot of rebounders. You have Jakob Poeltl with 9. Agbaji had 8 as the backup power forward. That says a lot. Fernando had 6. Battle had 6. Mobile had 9. The Raptors were really rebounding the ball very well.
The Raptors had 54 rebounds to the Philadelphia 76ers 28. That speaks everything you need to hear. And it's funny, you said Drummond, like, he's a good player. I mean, he was a good player about 5 years ago. Like, he's 4 for 11 in this game, 11 points. He really cannot fill that Embiid role at all for them. And it was a lot of Maxey who forced the agenda in this one, had 23 shots, got to the free throw line, but was really hucking up threes, 2 for 12. And you could see him. They actually do get a win later in this week. It was a pretty successful win. It was overtime. Who they played?
It was an overtime game.
Maxey scores 45 either way. It's what
Amazing
I'm saying.
Game.
And so that easily could have been the Raptors game here. But Maxey had a bit of an off day, forces the issue a little bit, and the Raptors get away with the Sixers only scoring 107 points. And you're looking around, and the players that they're playing, like you said, they're playing KJ Martin. Eric Gordon's getting 20 minutes here. Jared McCain, Council, the fourth, getting in there. And so Lowry's playing big minutes, who you don't want to be asking out of him in this career. I love Lowry. I love watching him play. He really still brings it as a competitor, but it's a lot of minutes for 38-year-old Kyle Lowry.
Absolutely.
And so, it was a toss-up, I think, in this game, and the Raptors fall on the right side of it, although the three-point struggles continue here. 26% from three-point land in this game. Davion Mitchell throws 2 in, Battle with 2 as well, and that's basically it for today in that department. Everything else was earned through fighting in the paint, a couple of jump shots, but mainly through that. And somebody I've enjoyed seeing that progression for him through the paint is actually Grady Dick. Obviously, he built his body up, but he still, I thought, had a lot of way to go just with breaking through some pressure on the perimeter and actually finishing through contact. And we've seen him in the first couple of games here actually be able to do that a little bit better. I mean, he's not Scotty Barnes at that yet, but he's getting there, and obviously the shot is gonna fall. I think Grady, I think he's gonna figure out how to become a starter in this league. I don't think he's there yet. Obviously, he's in that role right now. What do you think you've enjoyed seeing from Grady Dick this year?
I think the biggest thing, and I'm going to agree with you here, is his aggression to the rim. Obviously, he came out of Kansas being a guy who everybody knew could shoot. And most of the time, you're coming in as a one-and-done in college. You're going to have to adjust to the NBA. Grady Dick did take a year to adjust to the NBA. Had a little bit of time in the G League last year. Shot wasn't falling as efficiently as it could. But he's coming into these 3 games shooting the ball well, but he's also driving the ball to the rim well, and he's not afraid. I think that's the best way that I could put it. Last year you'd see these plays where he'd maybe hit a pump fake or a little bit of a jab step, and he'd get a lane to the rim, and he'd be so focused on making the right play that he'd make a skip pass that maybe wouldn't create much of an advantage, right?
Yeah.
It would be technically the right play if you were to look at it, but when he kicks that ball out, the offensive player that he passes the ball to isn't really going to be able to make any advantage out of that. But this year, he's coming to the game. Like you said, he's put on a little bit of weight. He feels probably more confident around the rim. And instead of making that skip pass that probably isn't going to do much for the offense, he's just going to go right up with the ball. I saw him have a couple very, very tough and-one layups. He's just taking the ball, he's going right up, he's using the glass, and he's finishing well. And I think if he can do that, then he's going to be a very solid player for the Raptors. I believe set a career high in the game we're about to talk about, but I could be very wrong. Overall, just playing very, very well, even if he hasn't set a career high. He's been great for the Raptors. I think if he's able to maintain this when Quickly and Barrett are back and sort of taking some of the shots away from him in the backcourt, then he'll be a solid piece for the Raps, probably a starter.
I wish we could combine the talents of him and Agbaji. If we could just put those guys into one player, I think that would actually be very successful. Recreate them in the aggregate or something like that. I'd love to see that because they sort of complement each other's strengths and weaknesses pretty well. Agbaji getting on the boards, finishing through contact, and making really smart cuts. Some other things that I've noticed in this game, like I was talking about earlier, you were talking about earlier, the 76ers overwhelmed with our bigs. Podol, a much better game. He had 11 free throws in this one, hit 9 of them, which is better for Pirtle as he usually does. Bounce back game for him after a struggle of the first game. And also, I think two standouts that we saw who actually we may see a lot more of is Jamison Battle, Jonathan Mogbo. Both had really great games. Mogbo leading the team in plus-minus right there, plus 12.
Yeah.
Really, really great defense. There was a couple of times where he got switched on to Maxey, and he really held his own on the outside. And that's what he needs to do if he wants to get a roster spot in the years coming forward. And he's already doing that now. And he was also, getting rebounds, 9 rebounds here, 5 of them offensive, and really just making a huge impact. And I love to see that from him. And then also Jamison Battle. The thing for him is to stay in the league, you got to make your threes. Got to make your threes, and you can't be complete liability on defense. And he succeeded with that. 2 for 3 from the 3, 4 for 5 from the field, 12 points, plus 4. That's what you want to see from him. Everybody else, off the bench, whatever. Raptors did what they needed to win this one, though.
Absolutely. To highlight Mobo's defense again, if you want to be a solid and versatile defender, which in that word versatile is very, very popular in the NBA today, especially with big defenders. Look at a guy like Bam Adebayo, who's probably the blueprint for what you want your big to be defensively. You want someone who can not only protect the rim, but also go out and guard the guys in the perimeter. And if Mobo's guarding Maxey confidently, and he's guarding him well, and he's, I'm not to say stopping him every time, because Tyrese Maxey is a very skilled player. Mobo's holding his own against a guy like that, and that is exactly what you want to see, especially out of a rookie. So he's very, very raw right now, but I think you give him a couple years, he will absolutely be someone who could probably give the Raptors some solid rotation minutes.
And that's the goal, right? If you're going to pick a guy in the 40s, just give me some rotation minutes a couple years down the line. And he's given us some pretty good minutes so far as we move on to our final game, the back-to-back, second of the back-to-back. Sorry. My throat is drying up. Raptors lose 112-101 against the Minnesota Timberwolves. I mean, who would have expected it? It's the Minnesota Timberwolves. Raptors have a tough start from the get-go here against Minnesota, outscoring them by 14 in the first quarter and never really get back into it. Like you said, a really standout performance for Grady Dick. 4 for 9 from the three-point line. That's him getting back to where he needs to be from 3. Also throwing in a couple of middies, a couple of finishes, and 3 free throws as well for that. A great performance from Grady Dick, and we're hoping to see him continue to build off these performances and make them more consistent, because that's the most important thing in the NBA. Anybody can score 50. Anybody can be a Malachi Flynn and score 50. Can you do it consistently? And hopefully we're going to see that more from Grady Dick. Scotty Barnes also really poured it on in the fourth quarter, although I think earlier on, a similar struggle to the first game. He really can't be asked to do the entire offense. And we also saw Davion Mitchell starting, but throw up a goose egg with 8 assists, I will add. But a goose egg offensively, 0 for 5. What do you think Davion Mitchell adds to this Raptors team?
Well, in theory, I think Davion Mitchell is a very, very solid player. You look at the time that he had in the Sacramento Kings, his nickname is literally Off Night, coming out of Baylor especially, because he was so good defensively that whoever he guarded ended up having an off night.
He milks that so much, though.
He does milk that a lot, and I'm sure the commentators do too. It's such a cool nickname, they kind of have to. It's like, if you know the Cavaliers, Georges Niang. Every time he makes a shot, the announcers call him the minivan because that's his nickname. And that's sort of what it feels like with Davion Mitchell, but... honestly, the nickname's pretty true. He's a very, very good defensive player. What he's done for the Raptors offensively, I don't think has been very impactful so far.
No.
To be blunt with you, like in theory, you're getting a guy who's going to be your point guard. He can lead your offense off the bench for a little while, and he's going to defend amazingly. But he's not really, he's not necessarily translating that offensive side of the ball to the Raptors. And coming off the bench, they have Jamal Shed, but honestly, right now with the Raptors bench looking so bleak in terms of like notable names and guys who are experienced in the league, Mitchell would be a guy that you'd want to step up and maybe lead the offense, especially right now with all these players injured. And he's definitely not been doing that. If I'm being blunt, I don't know if I see Mitchell as a Raptors rotation player maybe after this year. I think Jamal Shed can probably step up in that role as he grows in the league and take over. But I think Mitchell probably has a spot in another team where he can just come in and only be asked to play defense. That's something that he's very, very good at.
Yeah, and you talked about it. This bench in this game especially, just giving us absolutely nothing. Fernando, once again, he's out there. Boucher had a good first game, not hitting any of his threes in this one, and he struggled. Only 4 points. Mobo, not as much of an impact in this one. And Anthony Edwards is a much harder guard, I think, than guarding Maxey. And Shed as well, 5 and 5, 19 minutes. Honestly, probably the best guy off the bench if you're looking, other than maybe Jamison Battle. But DJ Carton as well, also getting a lot of minutes. It's a struggle off the bench right now for the Raptors. The only two guys who aren't playing, who I really think should never play, is Garrett Temple and Ulrich Shamshay. Like everybody else is getting minutes here on the report card. The only two outstanding performances, only real things you can come back and be a little bit happy about is Grady Dick and Ochai Agbaji. Agbaji as well, hitting some threes in this one, which is a swing skill that, at the beginning when he was drafted was his swing skill, and he's sort of just completely forgotten about it.
Exactly.
But finding his way a little bit here with this one. 3 threes made as well, and even more than Grady Dick, finishing in the lane, making smart cuts. And obviously, those two guys going off is not enough to win you a basketball game. And you could see it here. The Timberwolves, Randall had a really great game. He kind of torched anybody who was on him. Scotty Barnes struggling with that assignment. And defensively, it's not been a stellar season so far for Scotty. I know he has a lot to hold offensively, and so I'm going to give him a bit of a pass for that, but just something to keep in mind for future weeks. It was obviously Anthony Edwards, had an Anthony Edwards game, 24, 6 and 4, sorry. Shot pretty well from the field. Gobert doing his Gobert thing. DiVincenzo as well, who they really wanted to get in that trade for Cat. What do you think about that trade as well, Finn?
Oh gosh, that is it's an exciting trade, and my opinion on it shifts just about every single day. But at the start of it, I was very, very happy for the Knicks and sort of unsure about why the Timberwolves would have made the move. I think right now, people have sort of been talking to me about it in the weeks now that it's happened, in the weeks since it's happened. Sorry, and I think for the Timberwolves side, it was a bit of a money thing. Like they were going to have to pay Towns in a few years, especially with that second apron. That new rule for the salary cap coming in, teams like Minnesota was going to have to pay Karl Anthony Towns at some point, and so they figured might as well get some value for him now. Julius Randle is another stretch big. He's another guy who can take a lot of shots for you and play well.
Is Randle not making a max either, though?
I don't. Depends on how well he plays. Honestly, from how he's been playing this year, he's been fitting into to Minnesota well, especially in this game. He shot 9 for 16 from the field here, finished with 24 points. He's fitting into the Timberwolves very well in this game, and overall in the year, I think he's playing pretty well. He's done a max right now, but hopefully when he's done this contract, I guess at least the Timberwolves will cross their fingers and hope that they don't have to pay him too much money. Whereas a guy like Towns is definitely going to be asking for a supermax. You're probably going to have to pay him $40-45 million a year.
That's the thing. I don't want to pay Cat a supermax.
Exactly.
Right? He's probably going to get it on the market, but especially with how the aprons are, you don't want to be putting that much in a guy who struggles defensively, still has a lot of foul issues, and is, offensively can explode in games, but also kind of lacks that consistency that you like to see. And so I completely get that from their perspective. I just don't know if I would go the Randall route. But obviously you want to stay competitive. It's hard, like you said.
Yeah. And you did mention Dante DiVincenzo. I think that was an absolutely major piece that they got in this trade. Dante DiVincenzo, 16 points in this game. Only shot 5 for 15 from the field, but made a big impact. He and Naz Reid coming off the bench for the Minnesota Timberwolves are just elite. I think they're both going to be candidates for Sixth Man of the Year this year. DiVincenzo looks quite upset that he had to get traded away from all his Villanova friends. He's coming out with a bit of a vengeance here. And Minnesota just has a ridiculous bench roster. You look at Naz Reid, Joe Ingles, former Sixth Man of the Year candidate, Dante DiVincenzo, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who was their Sixth Man last year and is now coming off the bench being a defensive menace. They've got Robert Dillingham, who I thought honestly should have gone number 2 in the draft. Again, as a Wizards fan, I would have loved to have drafted him. He's not even playing minutes for this Minnesota team. He didn't play in this game against the Raptors. They've also got Terrence Shannon Jr., who was another first-round draft pick, looked amazing in preseason. They got Josh Minot, who looked great in preseason. They got Luka Garza, who's been, I feel like, should be getting rotation minutes.
Garza's a rotation guy.
Honestly,
for the Raptors easily.
I thought that 3 years ago, and he's still not playing for this Minnesota Timberwolves team.
Well, and that's I don't think these guys not playing is any indication of them not being good. I think it's just an indication of the Timberwolves just being so deep. And, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Joe Ingles only getting 6 minutes. It's rough out there for the bench of the Timberwolves if you want to get minutes. But if you're looking at the Timberwolves as a team as a whole, they look very solid in all the facets of the game. We'll see how this Randall move continues to pan out over the course of this season. But the Timberwolves starting off well and looking like the same old ant. And the Raptors just aren't going to compete with the Timberwolves at their peak of their powers at this moment. And obviously the offense has struggled. We haven't really gotten all of our offensive pieces. And 1 and 2 through these first 3 games I think I'll happily take. You looked at the schedule early on in the season, and it was going to be a tough start. And I think it's going to continue to be a tough start. Obviously, next game, we have the Nuggets. We're playing them.
That would be, it is 3 a.m., so I guess today.
Tonight. Check out that tonight. And 2 days later, we play the Hornets, Lakers, Kings, Nuggets again, Kings, Clippers, Lakers. All these teams starting off hot. It's going to be a lot of losses, I think, for the Raptors, especially if we can't get healthy. Bruce Brown, also a guy who's out, forgot to mention. And you look at this schedule, and you look at the players that the Raptors are currently putting out on the court, and it's going to be rough. I think we'll be lucky to have 3 wins by the end of next week. We'll be lucky to have 2 wins by the end of the next week. And, we play a lot of Lakers, a lot of Kings, a lot of Nuggets. We're going to see a lot of tomorrow in the future. It's going to be rough. What do you think this Raptors team looking prediction-wise here for the next couple of games?
Well, like you said, on this West Coast trip, there's a lot of teams that are looking solid. I know the Nuggets haven't started off the season well, but they're the Denver Nuggets. They're the former NBA champions. They have Nikola Jokic. They definitely will be a good team this year. And if you're looking at the Toronto Raptors, especially with all these injuries right now, they're not looking so great. But honestly, in an Eastern Conference that is absolutely stacked, there's so much talent across the league right now. It's hard as a Raptors fan to sort of hope for a season where they're going to have a positive winning percentage.
Yeah.
So really just come into these games, hope that the young players develop, hope that you see positives coming out of these players. And like we said, Jamal Shed has been a standout. Mobo's defense has been a standout. Grady Dick has also been a standout. Abaji is sort of turning his career around. So there's all these positives that you can look at, even if you're not looking so positively at the upcoming games.
Yeah, we're going to have to look out for these young guys to be developing. Keep your eye out for every single nuance they add to their game, because we're going to be down 10 a lot, and we're going to have a lot of minutes for these guys to eat up. But that aside, it's been a great podcast having you on, Finn. Well, I'll be back next week for all those Nuggets games for all of those Sacramento games. And yeah, hopefully it's not too bad. It's not too bad of a watch for us as we continue to trek through this season. Actually, just get it started. But I appreciate you, Finn, for doing this with me at 3:23 in the morning. I'll see you tomorrow morning. Anything else you want to plug? Anything else you want to say?
Well, Lucky and I do have a YouTube show that comes out every Monday morning. So it is actually a Monday at 3 a.m. now as we're recording. So that'll come out tonight probably around 3 or 4 o'clock on YouTube at Shutter Sports Media. It's our Shutter Sports Refresh. We give about a 5-minute recap of all the big things that happened in all of the sports world, not just the Raptors. So if you wanted to check that out, feel free. But other than that, thank you so much for having me on, Lucky. I had a blast.
Yeah, of course. Follow either of us on Twitter, but do what you want to do. I don't really care. Thank you for listening. I appreciate it. I'll see you guys next week. And always never underestimate the heart of a champion. Thank you.